In this session, we'll be talking about positioning. So this slide shows you an overview of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. In the previous session, we talked about the first two, segmentation and targeting. In this session, we'll be talking about positioning. So what is positioning? Positioning is a very central and key element of a marketing strategy for most companies. And it can be defined as the act of designing the company's offering to occupy a distinctive and unique place in the minds of the target market. So basically, positioning is trying to occupy a distinct place in the minds of customers. And in order to better understand positioning, we'll refer to two concepts, which are, the first is brand image and the second is brand identity. So what is the difference between brand image and brand identity? Brand image is about the image or reputation, or it's about the feelings, the perception that a product or service firm currently has in the marketplace. So in other words, it is how the customers perceive of the brand in customers' minds. Whereas brand identity is a unique set of associations the marketer or the company would like to create and maintain for a brand. So in other words, this is how a company would like to identify and portray its brand in the minds of customers. So one is about how the company wants to be portrayed in the minds of customers, which is about brand identity, whereas brand image is how the customers actually perceive the brand. So again, identity can be conceptualized as the way a company aims to identify or position itself in the minds of customers, whereas image is about the way the public or the customers, the market perceives the company or its products. Having said this then, now that we've identified the difference between brand image and brand identity, the positioning can be defined as the following, using these two terminologies, and especially brand identity. It's the process of establishing and sustaining an intended brand identity in the marketplace. So positioning is about a firm's intent of trying to establish and sustain a unique and differentiated brand identity in the market, in the minds of customers. So in other words, the key word here in this definition is brand identity, not brand image. So because positioning is about establishing and carving out a unique place in the minds of customers, and that's done through brand identity. So this slide shows you, using the Venn diagram, three different possibilities of positioning. So let's take a look at A first. A is when there is virtually no overlap between brand image and identity, whereas B shows you that there is a little bit of overlap between the two, and C shows you where there's a significant amount of overlap between brand image and brand identity. So which of these three Venn diagrams do you think would represent a good positioning strategy? Well, the answer would be C, because in C is where there is overlap between brand image and brand identity. In other words, the customers or the market have a perception of the brand in a way that the company wants the market or the customers to perceive their brand. Whereas in A, there is no overlap, which means that the customers perceive the brand, have a perception of the brand that is totally different from how the company wants the customers to perceive their brand, which is about brand identity. Whereas B is somewhere in between A and C. So C is the case where a company is effective in positioning. So then how do you implement? How do companies implement or execute positioning? Well, it's basically through the 4 Ps. Companies try to carve out a unique brand identity, in the minds of customers through the 4 Ps, through products, through price, through place, and promotion. And this will become clearer as we, develop this course and we go through the course. I'll show you a lot of examples where companies use different, product strategies, promotional strategies, even pricing and place strategies to position, to exercise positioning strategies in the market. So how do companies establish a positioning strategy? Well, the first is through defining the competitive frame of reference. So what do we mean by defining the competitive frame of reference? The next slide shows you that using an example in detail, but just to give you a brief summary here, it's about establishing the nature of the competition through category membership. So we need to sort of establish the boundaries of who we are competing with, who we are. Are we in the soft drink industry? Are we in the energy drink industry? Or are we in the alcohol beverage industry? So what is the category or the industry that we are in? Because by doing that, that defines who our competitors are. And then the next is define the basis of positioning, and that's typically done through point of parity and through point of difference. So point of parity, we call that POP. Point of difference, we call that POD. And we'll talk more about that shortly, but in terms of POP, point of parity, there can be 2 different types of POPs. The first is category POP, and the second is competitive POP. So let's take a closer look at what these are through the next couple of slides. So going back to establishing a frame of reference, I'm going to use the example, the case of Red Bull. Red Bull is we all know, is an energy drink. And very few people know this, but the country of origin of Red Bull, it comes from Austria. The country in Europe, Austria. And the way that this is positioned in Europe versus, let's say, Southeast Asia, such as in Thailand, is very different. In Europe, Red Bull is sold in cans. It's an energy drink that is popular, and it's, the target segment is young people, is youth, it's teenagers. It's a fashionable drink. Whereas in Thailand, it is an energy drink, but it's sold in these old-fashioned looking cough medicine type of bottles. And because a lot of these energy drinks are consumed in Thailand by lorry drivers or taxi drivers. And therefore, a lot of these energy drinks in Thailand are sold in these old-fashioned looking cough medicine type of bottles. So if Red Bull were to be sold in cans like they are in the US or in Europe, people would have a hard time identifying, what this product is. So in order for Red Bull to make their point and to make it easy for customers to develop the frame of reference, they sell these in old-fashioned looking cough medicine type of bottles. So because all the other energy drinks in Thailand are also sold in similar looking bottles. So this facilitates the information processing of customers, and it enables customers to understand and conclude that, okay, this product is a reference, is an energy drink because it's sold in similar looking in bottles. So this develops a frame of reference for Red Bull. Now, going back to the types of POPs, like I said, we have 2 different types of POPs, category POPs and competitive POPs. And a category POP is basically, it's a feature or an attribute of a product that is a must-have in order to compete in a given category, a product or service category. So it is so basic that a company or a brand must have these features to compete in a given product or service category. So it's kind of like a ticket to entry. If you don't have these, it's even hard to compete because every other competitor in that given product or service category possesses such features or attributes. So to give you an example, Nivea, as we all know, is popular, is well known because they make hand creams, and they're known for their softness. But when Nivea tried to expand and extend into the deodorant industry, just having that attribute softness was not enough. So they had to develop a category of POP, which was they had to have protection. Because in order to protect customers from sweat and from odor, protection was a category of POP that all other competitors in that deodorant industry possessed. So Nivea had to include that in their products, in their marketing communications, just to convey and to make sure, give confidence to customers, and to give credibility to their brand that we're able to compete with the other major players in that given industry. And then the next type of POP is a competitive POP. And basically what this type of POP is, it's a feature or an attribute that a brand includes in their product or service to negate the point of difference of a competitor. In other words, so it's a feature or an attribute that brands include in their products or services to negate and cancel out, to weaken, to neutralize a point of difference, a unique differentiating element of a competitor. So let's take the example of McDonald's. So McDonald's, they were losing a lot of their customers to, actually McDonald's, they were concerned about health-conscious customers. So what McDonald's did was, in the past, they didn't have grilled chicken, they didn't have fruit smoothies, they didn't have wraps, chicken wraps or veggie wraps, and for their kids' meal, they didn't have fruits in their kids' meals. But because they were concerned about losing their customers who were health conscious, they started including grilled chicken, veggie wraps, chicken wraps, or fruit smoothies and apples in kid meals, because not necessarily because they wanted to be a health conscious type of fast food restaurant, which they have no intentions of being. They didn't want to be the Chick-fil-A's. They didn't want to be the Panera Breads of the world or Chipotle's of the world. But they wanted to be just good enough so that they would still be in the consideration set for customers that had a high interest in health. Another example is McCafe. They were losing a lot of their breakfast customers to Starbucks and to other breakfast type of joints. So they established in 2007 McCafe, where they started selling cappuccinos, lattes, more of these fancy type of coffee drinks. Not necessarily because they wanted to be like Starbucks, but because they wanted to be considered, not be excluded from the consideration set of customers that were looking for more healthy type of, or more options for their, in their breakfast menu.